I was told that icy is the easiest word to spell. Looking at it now, I see why. Today, I'm going to recap a 2009 action drama film called Damage. The film opens as John Brickner is granted parole and walks out of prison. His exchange with the judge clues us into his backstory. He spent 4 years of a 7-year sentence behind bars, gaining early release due to his exceptional conduct and guilt over having taken a man's life. John relocates to Seattle, securing a job in construction under a boss who appears quite unsavory. One evening, while in a bar, he observes the bartender being bothered by a couple of inebriated men. He intervenes, forces an apology from the man, and unceremoniously ejects him from the premises. This noble act catches the eye of the establishment's proprietor, resulting in his second job as a doorman. Following a montage filled with the vibes of early 2000s rock music, we see John handling his construction job while enduring poor treatment from his employer and showing his strength against unruly patrons at the bar. John's impressive skills draw the attention of a stranger who offers him a job, which John declines. Later, while on the construction site, he's confronted by Veronica, the widow of the man he killed. She reveals that she advocated for his parole not because of his remorseful letters, but because her 8-year-old daughter requires a heart transplant. Holding him responsible for her husband's death, she demands that John finance the $250,000 operation. John, a rugged man with a golden heart, tallies his scant earnings in his room and conceals them in an air vent. That night, when Frankie, the barmaid, tries to lift his spirits by claiming her behind is spectacular, John inquires about the man who proposed the job to him previously. Frankie leads him to Reno, who organizes underground fight clubs. John, however, initially refuses to partake in the illicit fights, despite the potential 6-figure payouts. The next day, John is unjustly fired by his prejudiced boss, despite his hard work and integrity. In an ironic twist, his boss has a heart attack, and John saves his life while waiting for the ambulance. That night, he visits Veronica to inform her he can't afford her daughter's operation. Enraged, Veronica brings out John's prison letters, full of offers to help. The noise awakens Sarah, Veronica's daughter, who introduces John to her pet, a move that tugs at his already soft heart. Overwhelmed, John decides to explore the fighting ring and gets an opportunity to substitute for a fighter who passes out. Despite a nasty bite, he triumphs in his debut fight. True to his character, he shares his winnings with the fighter who couldn't compete, reaffirming his altruistic nature. John comes back from his morning run the next day to find Reno and Frankie already in his apartment, having discovered his hidden savings. They state that for John to compete in more fights, they need further funds. Funds they would have had if he hadn't shared his winnings with his previous opponent. They seek out an individual known as the Deacon, a kind of financier. Reno tries to convince Deacon to back John because he's talented, but Deacon is skeptical about John's reliability, citing a lack of long-term assurance. John asks for a private conversation with Deacon, and following a lukewarm religious metaphor from Deacon, it becomes clear that he's willing to bend for the right price. To raise funds, Reno pawns his father's valuable cufflinks, and they approach another man, Nestor. Reno is indebted to Nestor, who's grown tired of waiting for his money. As Nestor orders his men to kill Reno, John intervenes, proposing a fight with a $10,000 wager on the line. Nestor accepts, and an intense but not so engaging fight ensues between John and Nestor's fighter, surrounded by dogs ready to attack if they stray too close. Fortunately, John emerges victorious, enabling them to accumulate sufficient funds to approach Deacon. A call from Veronica prompts Frankie to question who she is. It's revealed that Frankie associates with Reno because he once saved her life. However, John seems indifferent and instead inquires about what Reno pawned. John later visits Veronica at the hospital, where her daughter Sarah, having collapsed, is now admitted. He assures Veronica that he is working towards securing the funds for Sarah's operation. Veronica plays the part of a stressed mother, relying on unhealthy habits instead of proactively trying to raise money, leaving the responsibility to John. Back at their place, Frankie accuses Reno of taking risks without adequate planning. She brings up a person named Veltz, and Reno requests her to lay off, claiming he just managed to shake off Nestor and Trini. Frankie, having taken a liking to John, argues that he's not just a source of money. Reno becomes frustrated and reveals to Frankie that John was imprisoned for murder. He asks her if she thinks John could be one of the good guys, while emphasizing their need for him to pay off their debt. Unbeknownst to them, John hears this but doesn't react. The film then moves to a series of fights in which John participates and wins. In one scene, John finds Frankie alone at home and questions her about her skills with a needle, asking why she didn't go to medical school. Frankie counter-questions him about his assumptions. Meanwhile, Reno is accosted by Veltz's men during a card game, beaten up, and ordered to pay back the $150,000 he owes Veltz within a week, or else Frankie will be in danger. Reno subsequently arranges another fight with Nestor's man. The match is brutal, and as John receives several hits, Frankie wishes to halt the fight. However, John withstands the blows, and with Reno encouraging him to unleash his fury, he eventually delivers a decisive, bloody blow and wins. While they're celebrating afterwards, John comments that the fight's reward should have been 6 figures, but Reno says they must still wait. When John receives a garbled call from Veronica, he immediately rushes to her apartment, where he finds a letter notifying Veronica that her request for an organ donor has been rejected. John discovers Veronica in the bathroom with her wrists slashed, a tragic attempt at suicide, and hurriedly brings her to the hospital. As they wait, Frankie inquires about Veronica, and John reveals the entire backstory. During this time, scars on Frankie's wrists are shown, suggesting that she once attempted suicide and was saved by Reno. John visits Veronica in her hospital room, urging her not to surrender. She responds by saying that her heart could have been given to Sarah, which is a flawed argument as she could have chosen to be a living donor rather than leaving herself to die. Regardless, John gives her his word that he'll secure the necessary funds. Reno arranges another match for Nestor's fighter with a wager of $150,000. When Reno is confronted by Veltz's henchmen in the restroom, he assures them he'll repay the debt after the fight. Frankie spots the men and is upset with Reno for not disclosing his plans. The fight ensues and John emerges victorious, but Nestor demands the fight to be a death match. John refuses and surrenders the match. Frankie hurries over to comfort John, while Reno receives a harsh beating from Veltz's men. On the drive home, John learns about the debt and criticizes Reno for withholding this information. Reno dismisses it, saying it's not John's concern. Frankie interjects, revealing that the debt is hers and Reno assumed it. Some days later, while dining at a restaurant, John notices a vehicle that has been frequently stopping nearby. He gets into the car and is taken to a wealthy elderly man. This man is indebted to John for saving his son-in-law, the construction worker's life. John informs him about Sarah's heart transplant and requests funding for a high-stakes fight. It's revealed that this man is Veltz himself. He presents John with an ultimatum: either wipe out Reno's debt or fund John's fight to raise money for the transplant. John chooses to clear Reno's debts. In the subsequent scene, John takes Veronica home and she begins to share her life story with the man who killed her husband. As she smokes a cigarette, she declares her daughter as her greatest achievement, even though she had to give up her dreams to become a mother. She also reassures John that she knows her husband's death was in self-defense. John then pays a visit to Deacon, questioning why Deacon had shared the parable of the unforgiving servant with him. The Deacon appears troubled and confesses that he's unable to assist John. Back at home, John prepares to leave when Reno arrives to express his gratitude for John settling his debts. Frankie discloses that Reno rescued her from Veltz, even paying for her after Veltz had left her nearly dead following a suicide attempt. Reno receives a call announcing that the high-stakes Timmins fight is set, funded by an anonymous benefactor. The group is elated. The fight proves to be John's most challenging yet, and when the cage floor gives way, plummeting him into a basement, it appears that he's been killed. However, covered in an unidentified substance, John rises and requests to finish the fight. He ultimately triumphs, and Reno dubs him the Damage. He manages to secure a donor for Veronica's daughter, and also returns Reno's father's cufflinks, which he had retrieved from the pawn shop. They share an awkward embrace before setting off together, restoring a sense of normalcy in their lives. If you enjoyed this video, don't be shy to hit the like button, and if you disliked it, hit the dislike button twice, just to be sure. It would be best if you watched the whole movie. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe for more videos like this.